Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Making one note to myself before we move forward. Now, what I want to do in this segment is I want to talk about something, and I think this is absolutely going to aggravate you, perhaps beyond the degree that you can imagine right now as we begin this segment. It's a really inexcusable thing that's taking place right now in Washington, D.C. It's really grotesque, the miscarriage of justice that's being represented here in this case. Brian Fisher is my name, by the way. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Focal Point is the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. And I want to talk with you about a nominee to the Department of Justice that President Obama has put forward. His name is Debo Adegbile. Debo Adegbile. And the important thing to understand about this Debo Adegbile is he is being nominated to head up the Civil Rights Division. Remember that as this story unfolds. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. So this is the guy that's going to be in charge of looking out for everybody's civil rights, everybody's unalienable rights. And remember, those three unalienable civil rights are life, liberty, and property. Those are our three unalienable God-given rights, rights that we possess because they are a gift to us from the Creator. So here's the guy, President Obama says, I'm going to put in charge of looking out for everybody's civil rights in the United States of America. Now, here's the problem. This Debo Adegbile, when he was with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, he defended a cold-blooded cop killer and got his death sentence commuted to life imprisonment. He spared this guy from the electric chair, from the death chamber, from lethal injection, by going to bat for him, and this guy is a cold-blooded cop killer. So here's a guy that's now going to be in charge of civil rights, and he made it his mission in life to deprive Daniel Faulkner, the policeman that was shot, and his family, to deprive them of their civil right to justice. Their unalienable right to life was taken by what's the guy's name? Mamia Abu Jamal. Back in 1981, he took the life of Maureen Faulkner's husband, Daniel Faulkner, depriving him of his right to life. He should pay for that with his life. And juries in Philadelphia decided that, yes, the death penalty was appropriate. That death sentence was upheld repeatedly by judges and courts. I'll walk you through some of that. And despite all of that, hang on a second. Disconnected myself again. But despite all of that, despite the abundant eyewitness evidence, despite the abundant forensic evidence, this guy that now President Obama wants to put in charge of everybody's civil rights used his energy, time, talent to frustrate the civil rights of Maureen Faulkner and her family. And the Senate is going to be voting on him perhaps sometime this afternoon or even tomorrow. So that's why this is an issue. I've had this in the stack for some time and just haven't gotten to it. And remember that because of the changes in the rules that Harry Reid worked, it only takes 51 votes now to confirm this guy to head up the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Now, I want to talk with you about what happened to Daniel Faulkner back in 1981. And I am reading from the transcript from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I did a little poking around this morning to get to the bottom of this, get all the facts, the information out in front of you, and the more I read, the worse it got. So here is from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, one of the number of rulings in which they turned down his appeal. And here are the facts of the case. This is December 9, 1981, 3:55 in the morning. And again, this is from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This isn't from some kind of right-wing pro-cop website. This is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court unanimously denying Abu Jamal a rehearing and a retrial. The evidence presented, the Supreme Court says, at the trial established that at approximately 3:55 a.m. on December 9th, 1981, Officer Faulkner made a routine car stop on Locust Street between 12th and 13th Streets in Center City, Philadelphia. This is a routine traffic stop. He's not interrupting a burglary at a convenience store or a holdup at a liquor store. This is a routine traffic stop. I don't know what the offense was. Ran a red light, ran a stop sign. Not sure what the deal was, but it was a routine traffic stop. The car was driven by the appellant's brother, William Cook. This guy changed his name to Abu Jabal after he converted to Islam and took the name Mumia Abu Jamal. He was part of the Black Panther outfit. He was part of an organization called MOVE in Philadelphia. It was a blatantly racist, anti-white organization. So his name before he changed it to Mumia Abu Jamal was Cook, Charles Cook. So his brother, William Cook, is driving the car. It's a Volkswagen. After making the stop, Officer Faulkner called for assistance on his police radio, requesting a police wagon to transport a prisoner. In other words, he was going to arrest this William Cook, put the handcuffs on him, wanted help transporting him to lockup. While Faulkner was trying to handcuff Cook, and the reason he had to do it is Cook took a punch at him, took a swing at him. The officer wants to talk to him. They exchange words. William Cook, the driver of the car, takes a poke at Officer Faulkner, who then has to restrain him, put handcuffs on him, calls for backup. While Faulkner was trying to handcuff Cook, the appellant, that is Mumia Abu Jamal, the appellant ran from across the street. So he saw the officer putting handcuffs on his brother. He runs across the street and shot the officer once in the back. So Officer Faulkner is trying to restrain a suspect who is resisting arrest, who took a swing at him, took a poke at him. So he's got a responsibility to restrain him, to put him in handcuffs. His back is to the street. So this Mumia Abu Jamal runs across the street and he shoots Officer Faulkner in the back. Faulkner was able to fire one shot, which wounded the appellant, that is, wounded Mumia Abu Jamal. But after Faulkner had fallen to the ground, the appellant shot him 4 more times at close range, once through the center of the face. Again, this is the Supreme Court rehearsing what has been established as beyond any reasonable shadow of doubt as part of the legal record. 2 other pedestrians also witnessed the incident besides a taxi cab driver and identified this Jamal as the perpetrator both at the scene and during the trial. Now, one of the eyewitnesses is a woman by the name of Cynthia White, and here's what she testified. This is eyewitness testimony now. This is the guy that President Obama's nominee tried to get off the hook. Cynthia White, the policeman, got out of the car and walked over, started walking over towards the Volkswagen. The driver of the Volkswagen got out of the car, and you know you're not supposed to do that. If you've been pulled over for a traffic stop, the cop wants you to stay in the car, doesn't want you to get out of the car. You're supposed to stay where you are. This guy certainly had to know that. The driver of the Volkswagen got out of the car. A few words passed. So apparently the guy gets out of the Volkswagen. Maybe he's belligerent at being pulled over. She doesn't know because she's watching from a distance. They both walked between the police car and the Volkswagen up to the sidewalk. So you got the police car behind the Volkswagen. There's a space between them. The driver gets out of the car. The police officer goes up to him. They exchange words. They go between the cars up onto the sidewalk. A few words again pass between them. The driver of the Volkswagen then struck the police officer with a closed fist to his cheek, and the police turned the driver of the Volkswagen around in a position to handcuff him. So they're talking on the sidewalk. The guy takes a swing at the police officer. He turns him around to put the cuffs on him. Cynthia White goes on. I looked across the street in the parking lot, and I noticed that Jamal, was running out of the parking lot, and he was practically on the curb when he shot 2 times at the police officer. It was in the back. The police officer turned around and staggered and seemed like he was grabbing for something, probably his gun to defend himself. Then he fell. Then Jamal came on top of the police officer and shot some more times. After that, he went over and slouched down and sat on the curb. And White testified that Officer Faulkner had his back turned as Jamal approached, and the first time he shot him was in the back. How many times did you see him shoot at the police officer? 2. And at that time, where was the police officer's back in relation to the man who was running across the street? His back was facing him. Cynthia White unequivocally identified Mumia Abu Jamal as the man she saw shoot Officer Daniel Faulkner. And then she observed that when the police came, he was slumped over on the curb. He revives when the police get there. And this is what Cynthia White says. They took him to the wagon. When they approached him and they went over to him, he was swinging his arms and kicking, and they were trying to get him under control to handcuff him. The attorney says, did you see Mr. Jamal get beaten that night? She said, what I seen was Jamal sitting on the curb, swinging his arms with closed fists and kicking, and the police swinging back and trying to get him under control to handcuff him. And that's the guy that this Adig Bailey guy defended. And President Obama apparently so impressed with his sense of justice, he wants him to be in charge of the Civil Rights Division. And not only that, but this Jamal confessed to the murder. Several witnesses stated that Mr. Jamal was violently resisting police when he was brought into Thomas Jefferson Hospital. So he's resisting arrest on the curb. They bring him into the hospital because he's got a gunshot wound. He's still violently resisting arrest. 3 people, including 2 police officers and a black hospital security guard, twice heard Jamal shout out, I shot the expletive deleted, and I hope the expletive deleted dies. 3 people heard him say that twice at the top of his lungs. I shot him, and I hope he dies. And yet Obama's nominee tried to get this guy off the hook and managed to enable him to beat the death penalty. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.